Welcome to Session 4 in the series on emotional readiness. I'm Terry Rose, and I'm glad to be with you today. Our topic is going to be on the measurement of the attachment relationships. As we've discussed so far in this series, we can see that the earliest relationship that a child develops with his or her primary caregivers really sets the foundation for later growth and development. Early parent-child relationships help children learn how to form and maintain relationships, how to express, experience, and regulate their emotion, and how to learn through discovery and play. All essential ingredients for school preparedness, for peer relationships, and for later romantic partnerships. We have ways, since Mary Ainsworth developed the strange situation, of measuring in a research-based setting the quality of the interaction between children and their primary caregiver. Typically, these assessments are done somewhere between 12 and 18 months, although they can extend into the second year of life. I'm going to show you a video clip that is available on YouTube. In fact, we're going to flash back out to YouTube to look at what the strange situation looks like and what secure attachment looks like within this research paradigm.
That's what researchers at Sarah Mangelsdorf's lab at the University of Illinois are investigating. 14-month Zachary is about to experience a series of separations and reunions that are designed to activate a baby's attachment behavior. At this age, strangers make the baby feel anxious. At the entrance of the researcher, Zachary heads over to his mother for safety. His mother reassures him and redirects his attention toward the toys. When the researcher tries to engage Zachary in play, it increases his stress, which makes him hold on to his mother for security. Gradually, he relaxes and begins to play with the researcher.
Now they're going to school.
The next stage of the study involves his mother leaving the room. Zachary tries to follow her, and when she disappears, Zachary is inconsolable. He wants his mommy. Zachary's distress at separation from his mother is actually a sign of healthy attachment. When his mother returns, his tears instantly subside. Researchers pay special attention to the moment when the child is reunited with the parent.
Let's see.
The way Zachary's mother comforts him and directs his attention away from his distress and his willingness to follow her lead tells them that he is a securely attached child. In less secure attachment, children respond to the reunion with their parent with anything from anger to avoidance. Aaron is 17 months, only 3 months older than Zachary. At this age, his fear of strangers has diminished. He happily shows the researcher his toys. In fact, he's the one to initiate their play. However, what will happen when his mother leaves the room? He is so engrossed that at first he doesn't notice her going.
Want to try more?
It doesn't take long before Aaron becomes aware of her absence.
Aaron, you want to do this again?
But unlike the younger Zachary, the researcher is able to re-engage Aaron in play quite quickly.
Let's take all these out.
This shows that he's past the age of separation anxiety.
Oh, yeah, I'll get them.
They play for a while, and then the next stage of the study begins. The researcher goes out of the room and leaves Aaron behind. This time, Aaron gets upset. He feels completely abandoned. Then the researcher comes back.
Everything's okay. Mommy's coming back. Okay?
By telling him that his mummy is coming back, she reassures him,
You want to play with this one?
and he feels safe again, ready to play. Research has shown that separation anxiety begins around the age of 8 months and peaks sometime between 10 and 18 months.
Let's get old.
For the most part, if the child feels securely attached, separation anxiety gradually fades during the last half of the second year.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to our PowerPoint here. So this opportunity to measure attachment, we can really see that in this very research-based situation, we can watch not only the child's relationship with his mother, but we also see how growth and development and cognitive changes help children get through this period of separation anxiety that the researchers take advantage of. What's interesting, as they said, that separation anxiety usually begins around 8, 9, 10 months. At that point, the child begins to notice what we call object permanency. That is, when something disappears, the child still knows it exists. So if you hide a teddy bear under a blanket, the child will pull off the blanket to find the teddy bear. Prior to this age, out of sight, out of mind is the typical saying. And that really goes because the child has yet to develop the cognitive capacity to know something exists when they can't see it. So when a child younger than 8 or 9 months, when the parent leaves, the child actually doesn't have a mental representation yet of that parent, knowing that that parent's coming back. As we start the second half of the first year, the child's cognitive abilities begin to settle in and to mature. The neural fibers begin to connect in a way that to allow the child to remember that something exists even when the child can no longer see it, whether it be the teddy bear or the parent. So by taking advantage of that, we can see when the child is left with the stranger. One, does he treat the stranger differently than he treated the mother? Is he able to engage in play? Is he able to use the stranger as a secure base, and in some ways taking his knowledge of his relationship with his mother or his father and translating it to the stranger? That is, people are responsive, sensitive, think I'm great, and therefore, because that's my experience, I assume the stranger that I've been left with also will be sensitive, responsive, and think I'm great. For the younger children who are distressed, it's the quality of the relationship when the parent comes back in the room that the child's may be upset, maybe please don't do that again, but is able to recover and go back to the same level of play before the separation happened. And that's really what we're looking at in developing this research measure that allows us to measure the quality of the relationship. Our goal is that all children have this secure base from which to work, and that secure base is supplied through a series of experiences, everyday, normal, typical activities that the child has with their caring team of adults that help them develop that sense of confidence and competence. So we've talked about secure attachment and said that's our goal. And then the question is, what does it look like when it's not secure? So I want to again show a video clip so you can get a really good idea of this research situation in which children develop what we call anxious attachments. That is, where they don't have the sense of confidence and competence both in themselves and in their primary caregivers. So I'm going to flip back out again to YouTube so we can look at these research vignettes.
This experiment, which I watched through secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
This bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will be on top.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child, 1-year-old, and then follow it up and interview them about the relationships of their parents when they were 21 years old. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
After several minutes' play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
Sweetie, I'll be back in 1 minute, okay? I'll get you back in 1 minute.
It's upsetting for you. Sure. I feel. But she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother and get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. You see, the mother was out. She was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with the mother. She's beginning to show a little interest in the environment, and shortly she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure one?
Yes, yes.
You're certainly much happier.
Goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in. The point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face, a sad expression, puts her face down. When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure
Yes,
attachment?
insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now, this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure. But you'll see, we got a look at his play before the separation. Mother's left. When she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away. He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the contact. We think that the difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
So we're going to come back out here to the PowerPoint again. So the first example that we saw, or the second example that we saw here, the idea that sometimes the baby got it and sometimes the baby didn't get it. So the parent was consistent and reliable some of the time and then unavailable other time. This can happen, for example, if we have a parent who is using drugs and alcohol, for example, that when the parent's not high, that she's responsive and consistent and reliable, but when she is high, she's unavailable to the baby. And the baby can't tell the difference between mom being high or not high. It also can be if a mother has a lot of unresolved ambivalence herself, either about being parent, being home with the baby, being angry about her situation. So sometimes she's able to be responsive and sometimes she's not able to be. kind of unresolved issues in how she sees her own relationships. That I want you to need me, but I don't want you to need me too much. And then when I do want you to need me, then sometimes I don't want you. So what happens is the baby gets mixed messages. And because the baby's limited cognitive capacities, the baby can only understand it from the baby's perspective and doesn't know what gets attention and what doesn't. And so the baby's left with a sense of anxiety, if you will, of anxiousness, that I don't know how to be confident about myself or confident that you're going to be there for me. What we see in children who have this anxiety about relationships, who can't quite get enough, is, let's say, the first day of kindergarten, this is the child that wants to really know the teacher and sit right next to the teacher, and the teacher's like, okay, honey, come, you can sit next to me. And then the second day, same thing. Third day, not interested in playing with the other children, just wants to be with the kindergarten teacher. The fourth day, still next to the teacher. The fifth day, still wants to be the teacher's helper. It's like the child can't quite get filled up in order to go on about what the other children are doing, and that is engaging in the activity, engaging with their peers, engaging in play. This child is really focused on the attention from the teacher. And oftentimes teachers will be warm and caring for these young children, but then they realize there are 20 other kids in the classroom that aren't getting nearly the same attention, and so they kind of are like, okay, I can't really give you that much today, and then they start ignoring or avoiding that child, kind of reinforcing the child's beliefs that sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't. Because remember, the early attachment history sets the foundation for how children think about later relationships and about themselves. What we see is children that have this anxiety, that what teachers are is warm, but they set pretty low expectations. It's kind of like, okay, I know you really need that, and just try to do your best rather than I really expect you to exceed. Teachers tend to be controlling and overly nurturing in response to that ambivalence that the child shows themselves, or that anxiety, neither of which really helps the child have that I matter attitude. I can do it. I can tell others, you just keep trying. We really lose that because the children didn't bring that with them to start kindergarten, and then teachers begin to respond correspondingly to what the children are expecting from them. Infants that start out, as you heard in the video, we have data that's longitudinal, 21. There's the Minnesota longitudinal study that is looking into the 30s of adults that they started studying as babies. What we see is that adults who come with that anxious attachment history, with that sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, seek reassurance a lot in relationships. They need relationships either to save them or to complete them, and they tend to be clingy and demanding, which then sometimes drives, just like the kindergarten teacher, may also drive an adult relationship, either a work relationship or a romantic relationship, that they become, you have to call me and you have to call me this many times. Those of you that do home visiting work may see this in parents who call you relentlessly and can't seem to get filled up, which is really the idea that you think if I just do enough, I can help this adult know that I'm secure and reliable and stable. But they've had such a long history of both pulling people in and pushing people away that that actually is the driving force in most of their adult relationships. The first attachment pattern, where the little baby just put the head down when mom came back in the room and looked sad, actually shook his head no and put his hands up to his eyes. We call that an avoidant or dismissive kind of attachment, where the child was distressed that mom left. When mom comes back, the child's distress isn't relieved. That it actually, the baby actually kind of avoids using the parent as a secure base. That we see this avoidant attachment be in a series of interactions with the adult, in which the baby's needs are, when they really need somebody to feed them in the middle of the night or change a diaper, that those are often refused or ignored or rebuffed by the parents, and that parents want their babies to be independent, to not be clingy, to not need them, to not cry when they leave. If you looked at those separation activities, those are things that happen frequently in infant and toddler rooms, where you can see a 9-month-old become really distressed, even though the 9-month-old's been with the teachers for a long period of time when mom leaves, because now the 9-month-old has this concept that she's still there, that I could get her back. And we see that as a healthy sign of attachment. If the baby's avoidant, there's no reaction when mom left, and not much of a reaction when mom comes back. And the thing about attachment, it's a two-way street. So mom starts behaving in one way, the baby responds in another, which then goes on to consistently kind of perpetuate this relationship of avoidance and independence. You need to be able to do this without me. We see that avoidant attachment relationship. So for example, when we gave the example of the 5-month-old in the middle of the night starting to cry, now we have the 5-month-old in the middle of the night that starts to cry, and mom just got into bed after having a fight with the boyfriend. And the baby's cry gets louder, and she puts the pillow over her head. And then from next door, as the baby's cry gets louder, she hears, "Shut that damn baby up." So she gets out of bed and she goes over to the baby and she picks up the baby, and it's like, you're not going to always get what you need. The world's not like that. And she starts to feed the baby and think about the fight she just had, and the baby stops feeding, and mom's like, "Fine, you don't want to eat, go to bed." And she puts the baby back in the crib and goes back into bed herself. That is that dismissiveness, that not reading the baby's cues and signals, not recognizing how her own kind of pushing off of the baby impacts the baby's experience to feel confident and competent. Those middle of the night feelings begin as a history of experience. A one night like that is not going to have the great impact. It's the every night or most nights having this, or most days having this. You need to be independent. You should need me. You should do that for yourself, of an infant or a toddler who are really designed to be dependent on adults. That's when we begin to see this insecure pattern of attachment emerge. Children who have this avoidant pattern of attachment tend to be seen by others as mean, as aggressive, and they're least likely to be accepted or engaged or interested by their peers. If you do a social likability rating in a 3rd grade classroom, children that come from this avoidant history are the ones that are ranked the lowest in terms of social acceptance. We find that teachers, when the student comes into their classroom with an avoidant history, kind of, "I'm independent, I don't need you," teachers tend to be really controlling with these children as well, but set very low expectations. And their behaviors often get the teacher angry. They feel the child pushing them away, and in response, they tend to feel angry and dismissive at the child, and show very little nurturing. So the child's attachment history not only impacts their "I matter" attitude, like I can do this and I can do well, it also impacts how other adults treat children as they grow up. So our system change model is, how do we get 100% of children to start from the very beginning with a secure, reliable, consistent pattern of attachment with their primary caregiver or their team of caring adults. That is, a secure attachment is what allows us to predict the future success of children. And what we see is that 35 to 45% of any group of children are starting off their early history in the first 2 years of life with an insecure attachment relationship with their primary caregivers. They're already being set back because the quality of the relationship with the parent is not sensitive, reliable, consistent, responsive, or protective. So it gives us a very direct opportunity to invest in the quality of the relationship that babies have with their primary caregivers. So how do we make it easier for children to be ready for kindergarten, to be successful in school, and to be competent in their life? It's about secure attachment relationships from the very beginning. Thank you for joining us in the series on emotional readiness.